Hello. Today I will talk about changes to environmental legislation. Species that are endangered or under attack in Ontario. Through disguise, the threats to endangered species are disguised as economic, and this is an attack on democracy as well. I will talk about what is called Bill 5, 2025, which is an act to enact the Special Economic Zones Act 2025 to amend the Endangered Species Act 2007 and to replace it with the Species Conservation Act 2025 and to amend various acts and revoke various regulations in relation to development and to procurement. So I will switch my screen. So this is the act that I will be looking at. There was a lot of news to cover regarding it. And maybe... I can possibly make this bigger, but 150, that should be big. There's different schedules in this act. There's 10 schedules, so it's an ominous bill. Lots to go through. So I might have to go through different nights. There's the Electricity Act, 1998. So I won't talk about that today. Endangered Species Act. So this will be the focus of tonight. There are some things that I do like. So Section 1 of the Endangered Species Act 2007 will be amended by striking out Aboriginal and substituting Indigenous. So that is something that I do like. Because many Indigenous people prefer the term Indigenous as opposed to Aboriginal. So paragraphs 2 and 3 of Section 1 of the Act are repealed and the following substituted to provide for the protection and conservation of species while taking into account social and economic considerations, including the need for sustainable economic growth in Ontario. So this part is concerning because they added economic considerations. I have the what's it called? The Endangered Species Act 2007, so I can compare what was said before and what was said after. So let's see. Paragraphs 2 and 3 of Section 1. Paragraphs 2 and 3. So what's paragraphs 2 and 3? Okay, so originally paragraphs 2 and 3 will of Section 1, which is the purpose. So 2 was to protect species that are at risk in their habitats and to promote the recovery of species that are at risk. So this is changed to provide for the protection and conservation of species while taking into account social and economic considerations, including the need for sustainable economic growth. And then they got rid of to promote stewardship activities to assist in the protection and recovery of species that are at risk. So there's no mention of promoting recovery, so I believe that is problematic. Oh, and feel free to chat if you're online. Like ask questions, make comments. So there is that change. I believe that the purpose of the act sets the entire act. The purpose the purpose can guide. It's not the purpose isn't legally binding, but it guides interpretation of the rest of the act. So that is concerning, and a lot of species are endangered because of economic is sustainable defined anywhere? So let's see. Is sustainable, because sustainable has its own definition. So I will see. There's different, depending on how it's sustainable is defined. Those can determine further details. Sustainable doesn't necessarily mean it's environmentally friendly. And it has been it's very loosely defined often. And it's that doesn't look like they changed the preamble. So there's a sentence: biological diversity makes many essential contributions to human life, including foods, clothing, and medicines, and is an important part of sustainable social and economic development. So by getting rid of by eliminating protections for endangered species, they're also impacting economic development and sustainability just based on this preamble. Let's see. So there is. So that's section 2. So the definition of Aboriginal person in subsection 2.1 of the Act is repealed. So that they don't replace Aboriginal person with Indigenous person. So those Section 35 of the Constitution Act. Let's see. Yeah, because they're getting... Yeah, so those implications federally with that. Paragraph 1, Section 1. So paragraph 1, Section 1. Paragraph 1, Section 1. Okay, so it's indigenous. Yeah. Let's see. So if they get rid of that section, what does that mean for the rest of the act? Oh. So does 19.1 still apply? So let's see. Oh. Okay, so it does say that nothing in this act shall be constructed. Shall is important. So that they have to do it to abrogate or derogate from the protection provided for the existing Aboriginal treaty rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada as recognized and informed in Section 35 of the Constitution Act, 1982. So they don't apply to, it also doesn't apply to unless it's otherwise stated. The Act and regulations do not apply with respect to the following species if the species is listed as extirpated, endangered, or threatened on the list of wildlife species at risk under the Species at Risk Act, Canada. Species of birds protected by the Migratory Bird Convention Act, or the aquatic species as defined in subsection 1-2 of the Species at Risk Act. Let's see. Oh. I think my highlights have disappeared on me. Okay, so definition of enforcement officer in subsection 2(1) of the Act is repealed. What was the definition of an enforcement officer? So there's a definition under section 21. Okay, so it just... It just says the minister may appoint persons or classes of persons as enforcement officers for the purposes of this act. Okay, let's see what else is changed. So this is where things get very troubling. Habitat. Now, I am very concerned about the changes to habitat. Definitions are critical in any piece of legislation. And each word or lack of word matters. So let's go through the changes to definition. So they changed, they repealed the definition of habitat. Originally it was with respect to species of animal, plant, or other organism for which regulation made under clause 56(1) A is enforced the area prescribed by that regulation as the habitat of the species, or with respect to any other species of animal, plant, or other organism, an area on which a species depends directly or indirectly to carry on its life processes, including life processes such as reproduction, rearing, hibernation, migration, or feeding. Okay? And includes places in the area described in clause A or B, whichever is applicable, that are used by members of the species as dens, nests, hibernatia, or other residences. So that's what it was. Okay? What it is now is in respect to so section A in respect to animal species. So A. So they got rid of section 56(1). So a dwelling place such as a den, nest, or other similar place that is occupied or habitually occupied by one or more members of a species for the purpose of breeding, rearing, staging, wintering, or hibernating, and the area immediately around a dwelling place described in subclause I that is essential for the purposes set out in that subclause. And then B, in respect to vascular plant species, the criteria root zone surrounding a member of the species, and in respect to all other species, an area on which any member of a species directly depends in order to carry on its life processes. This would dramatically reduce habitat and lead to increased fragmentation of the habitat. Wildlife requires additional habitat for more than just eating, or what did they say? Yeah, they require more than habitat for more than just breeding, rearing, staging, wintering, or hibernating. They also require space. So let's see. So let's see here. I want to see. I'm going to look up something. So they require additional space for adaptation, for going to new groups. If they're isolated, they might inbreed. There might be changing conditions. There might be territorial, and fragmentation is a huge issue, so like think roads and stuff like that. So those are huge issues. Anywhere where there's a road, vehicles often hit wildlife, and that can damage the reproduction, especially turtles. And then some species depend on other species that might not be endangered to be protected. So by limiting the protection of one species might negatively impact all other species. This is with plants, especially. Some plants require heavy cover, forest. Some plants, they depend on the life cycle of other forest ecosystems. So let's see. And then, the definition of recovery strategy is repealed. It says, so recovery strategy was a strategy prepared under Section 11 for the recovery of species. And there's no definition. So probably Section 11 was eliminated. Let's see. I'm just looking at what else has changed. There was a transition date. So the Schedule 2 of the Protect Ontario Biological or Economy Act comes into force. That's the date, and it'll come into force when it receives royal proclamation. And then they added tribunal, which means Ontario Land Tribunal. Subsection 2.2. Let's see, what's subsection 2.2? Subsection 2. So subsection 2 was eliminated. So let's see. it wasn't eliminated. It was striking out Clause B of. So let's see, Clause B of. So, yeah, it still says it does not include an area where the species formerly occurred, which is disappointing, but it was in the previous act, or has the potential to be reintroduced, unless existing members of the species depend on that area to carry on their life processes. So, formal habitat is not going to be protected either. So it's going to be hard to reintroduce the species because of that. If there's damage in existing habitat. So there's some transition date. Reference to habitat in any of the following provisions is deemed to be reference to the definition of habitat under subsection 1 as it read immediately before the transition date. So this is any authorization granted under subsection 9.5 before the transition date. An agreement entered under section 16 before the transition date. Yeah, so there's some. So it's not going to be. So there's going to be some transition. So there's going to be a new section. Delegation of powers and duties, subsection 2.11. The minister may authorize the deputy minister or any other employee in the ministry to exercise any power to perform any duty that is granted to or vested in the minister under this act. So 2.1. There's the following section. Minister may authorize the deputy minister. Okay. Oh. And then they may, which is the key word, limit authorization made under subsection 1 in such a manner as the minister considers advisable. Section 3.2 and 3 of the Act are repealed and the following substituted. Class L shall be composed of at least 10 members who shall be appointed by the Lieutenant Governor and Council on the recommendation of the Minister. So 3.2 and 3. Okay, so it used to be there might be they might not all be appointed, it seems like, but now at least 10 of them have to be appointed. So it's going to be government people that don't necessarily care about the environment composing these committees. So it seems very political. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so paragraph 1 of subsection 4.1 of the Act is amended by adding paragraph 4.1. Oh, so it's like more, so they're making it, so they're requiring options. So as extinct, expired, endangered, threatened, or of special concern for the mammals. So they have to maintain criteria for assessing and classifying species. And then they added that section. 42A. So section 42A of the Act is amended by striking out has been at the beginning and substituting is. So they shall ensure that the list referred to in paragraph 2 of subsection 1 includes every Ontario species that, now it says, instead of has been, it says is classified by the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada as exploited, endangered, threatened, or special concern under the Species at Risk Act. Oh, thank you. Dungeon. Oh, I hear a message. I'm curious. Currently, I do not play Dungeons and Dragons. But I do play. I do play some games, yes. I play SimCity, and I haven't played it. I haven't been on here in a while. What's the other game that I play? It's like Underground, and it's radioactive. I'll pull it up, but oh, and thank you for the follow. Trust Rules Guy 94. If you're still listening, I appreciate the follow. And I will be playing that game, other games, on stream. Let's see. Let's see. 8.1. Okay, so risk of immediate extinction or extirpation. If the species is not listed on the Species at Risk in Ontario list as expired, endangered, or threatened species, but the minister is of the opinion that the species may be facing imminent extinction or exploitation. The minister may, which is key, require CASO to assess and clarify the species, and not later than the date specified by the minister, or submit a report to the minister under Section 6. And then the minister may require CASO to reconsider classification if there's an opinion of credible scientific information, and not later than the date specified by the minister, to submit a report to the minister under Section 6 indicating whether CASO conforms to classification or reclassifies the species. Okay, so they can force change. They can force reporting. There's temporary suspension of protections upon initial listing. That's concerning. Subject to sections 2 and 3, the minister may, by regulation, order as of that day, a species is listed on the species at risk and interior list as endangered or threatened species for the first time. The application to the species of all or same of the prohibitions in section 9.1 and 10.1 shall be temporarily suspended. So even though they might be endangered, if they're listed for the first time, they can be harmed even though it's against the legislation. I'll probably go until 9, and then I might switch into playing a game. Let's see. So it could be 3 years for a suspension. The making of an order under subsection 1 with respect to species does not relieve the minister of any obligations under section 11, 12, 12.1, or 12.2 with respect to that species. Oh, sorry, I'm reading what was existing. Okay. So there's some troubling stuff in the existing one. So council shall be composed of at least 10 members. Let's see. So subsections 8.4 to 8.4.2 of the Act all repealed. 8.4 so this is requiring COSO to reconsider classification of a species under subsection 3. This is huge. Clause 9.1a of the Act is amended by striking out home, harass, and substituting home. So originally it said, no person shall kill, harm, harass, capture, or take a living member of a species that is listed on the Species at Risk and Ontario list as expired, endangered, or threatened species. Like an animal can be harassed, but not necessarily harmed. So that's going to make it more challenging to prove a case legally. 9.1.1 and 1.4 of the Act all repealed. So that's 9.1.1. So 1.1 says if a species is listed on the Species at Risk in Ontario list as endangered or threatened species for the first time, the application of the prohibitions in subsection 1 with respect to the species is subject to any order made under section 8.1. 8.1 is so it's going to be more difficult for the minister to make protections. So the minister may, by regulation, order that as of the day the species is listed on the Species at Risk in Ontario as endangered or threatened species for the... Oh, wait. Oh, never mind. Yeah, so it's talking about temporary suspensions and 9.5. Okay, so let's see. Subsections 9.5 and 5.1 of the Act all repealed. So clause 1b does not apply to the possession or transport of a species by a person or body if the ministry has authorized the person or body to possess or transport the species for scientific or educational purpose, traditional, cultural, or religious or ceremonial purposes. So that means even people that are educating or cultural can possess, transport, collect, buy, sell, lease, trade, or offer to buy, sell, lease, or trade. So they can't possess for scientific knowledge. And 5.1. Okay, so let's see. Subsection 10.3 of the Act is repealed. Sections 11 to 16.1 of the Act are repealed. 11. Okay, so 11 is the minister shall ensure strategies prepared for the recovery of each species that is listed on the species at risk and Ontario list as endangered or threatened species, and the strategies shall set out advice and recommendations to the minister in accordance with subsection 2. So that's concerning. And then let's see, they're getting rid of the precautionary principle. So they just got rid of massive sections. Which includes like an ecosystem approach, using an ecosystem approach. So this is like huge like recovery strategies. So that goes to 16.1. Okay, so that's... And 17 of the Act is repealed. What is that? Okay. I don't notice any major difference. Anyways, I'm just going to go to the washroom soon. So find out well. Okay, so I am on page 8. Oh, okay, so this is huge change. I'm only on page 8. Yeah, so recovery strategies, they're gone. So I'll pause there. Let's see, I am on a break. Okay, I am back. Let's see. So I am concerned about that aspect. Sections 18 to 20 of the Act all repealed. So 18 to 20. So this is activities regulated under other acts. Regulations. Let's see. So using an account, let's see. So I don't know if I missed any. I don't know if I missed anything, and this. I think I put the main points, but I will look at a news article. This is an article in the Narwhal called "Ontario is Killing Its Endangered Species Act. Here's What You Need to Know" by Catherine Peeman, April 24th, 2015. So this is going to speed up natural resource development, shift energy regulation, and designate areas in the province as special economic zones. Well, Cabinet could decide other laws no longer apply. So this is why I might need like a couple days to go through this. Because that one schedule took about an hour. There's an environmental registry listing for the new law, and you can comment until May 17th. On the environmental registry, I encourage you to do so. So recovery and stewardship are eliminated. And then endangered species laws have been in place since the 1970s. There's a point. Social and economic considerations already dominate other decision-making frameworks. And that was said by Justina Ray, President and Senior Scientist with Wildlife Conservation Society. Okay. So this is about the Conservation Act, Species Conservation Act, so which redefines habitat for species at risk. And then because of the changes that I mentioned earlier, around like the definition of habitat, the new Species Conservation Act defines animal habitat as a dwelling place or the area immediately around it, such as a den, nest, or other similar place that is occupied or habitually occupied by one or more members of the species for the purposes of breeding, rearing, staging, wintering, or hibernating. The article says that means the areas needed for other processes critical to species survival, like finding food, are no longer protected. And then I mentioned fragmentation. But finding food is a good reason for protection. And then, so it gets rid of the ecosystem approach. Let's see. The Species Conservation Act empowers Cabinet to define terms like adverse effect and alternative habitat and in the wild, and coming to its conclusions on permissible activities. So that's troubling. And then they don't have to. Project proponents with proposals that could harm the species at risk will also be able to start work as soon as they complete an online registration process rather than waiting for a permit from the environmental registry. So there's no oversight. So, okay, it says permits are currently required for land development, infrastructure, aggregate pits, and cores, and other significant projects. And then they're reviewed by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, which delivers guidance around best practices to minimize impacts to the species they're likely to harm. And then there's a heading called "A Trajectory of Erosion in Ontario Species at Risk Law." Well, I'm not looking at the chart. I'm just going to go to the Twitch chat if I can find it. Oh wait, home channel. Yeah, so I'm on this chat. Let's see. So that's the heading. There's been no provincial review of what changes have achieved in terms of well-being of at-risk species. And then Ontario had 22% more species at risk in 2020 compared with 2009. They reference the More Homes, More Choice Act. And then it required status of species that also exist outside of Ontario, including outside of Canada, to be considered during its listing, which is a low threat category outside Ontario, meant it would be given a similarly low classification in Ontario. So, and then they got rid of automatic listing of endangered species. It says under the species. The article says under the Species Conservation Act, the listing is at the discretion of the Environment Minister, who can also choose to delist species regardless of what the science says, as well as appoint committee members. And it's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. The progress towards protection and recovery. But it's not going to be anymore. The Species Conservation Act removes the requirement for the government to develop recovery strategy, management plan, response statement, and review of progress. Only federally listed species will have a recovery strategy available for use in Ontario, which are subject to lengthy delays. And then, that's interesting. Less than 5% of the range of most terrestrial at-risk species occur on federal land. And protection for species listed under the Species at-Risk Act only extends to individual plants and animals in the dwelling places on federal lands, like national parks, First Nations reserves. migratory birds and aquatic species that are listed as endangered or threatened under the Federal Species at Risk Act or excluded from Ontario's proposed Species Conservation Act. And then there's, what does this changes to the Endangered Species Act mean for the red-side dace and Highway 413? It says, this is interesting. Biodiversity is worth $84.4 billion a year. And $28 or $122.5 billion today. With inflation. Credit River Watershed provides $371 million per year in ecosystem services, and the Greenbelt provides $2.7 billion per year. So there is money lost as a result of the changes to habitat protection. We do need, accounting for ecosystem services. And then there's a quote from Environmental Defense. It just puts more onus on the federal government to do their job properly. Now it will be very clear that the provincial government has complete disdain for any of these values along this highway, and the federal government will have to carry all the weight in ensuring that these species are not eradicated. The fact that the article says the fact that red-sided dace is plight as an endangered species has become so closely tied to the fight against Highway 14 is symbolic. So let's, and then I will go to make video. I'm just going to find what I wrote on Facebook and say some things. So, a few years ago, I won the Think Like a Mountain award. Today, I urge you to all think like a mountain. The provincial government is proposing to repeal the endangered species legislation in Ontario. You can comment until May 17th on the Environmental Registry or speak at the committee. We must fight for those who do not speak human and listen. Endangered species need us, and we need them. And then so it's important to think like a mountain. The changes made and do not benefit the economy and do not benefit Ontarians. They are devastating to wildlife. Places that we enjoy will not be protected, like trails, forests, and wetlands. They could be lost.